Hello and welcome back to another video here on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about arrays in Java and how you can use them. Let's not waste time. Let's get straight into it. So an array is a collection of variables of the same type stored in a specified memory location. An array is useful because it allows you to have multiple different values stored within one variable. So instead of having multiple like integers, you can have one variable and just store different integers in it. So the way you create an array is by first specifying the type of data that you want it to hold. So be that integers, or maybe you want it to be characters, or maybe you want it to be strings like we have in the main method over here, or even a boolean if you want for some reason. And you're not just limited to data types, you can also have classes. So you can have an array, you can have the main class array, really just anything that you want, and it will only store objects of that specified type. So we're going to have an integer array, so you're going to type down int followed by square brackets. So this square bracket here is what shows that you're not just creating an integer, instead you're creating an integer array. So now you need to give it a name. We're going to give it integers, and that is how you declare an array variable. So this is an integer array and it will only hold integer values, right? So to assign a value to this, you're going to put the assignment operator and then say new int array, just like that. You're going to repeat it, and then inside the square brackets here, you're going to put in the number of elements that you want your array to have. So if you specify 5, this object will only be able to hold 5 integers. If you say 10, it will only ever be able to hold 10 integers. It does not dynamically change the number of elements that exist in it. So if you specify 5, it can only ever hold 5 elements. So you can say 5, for example, like that. Another way of initializing this is to actually just specify the values themselves. So you're going to have curly braces like this, and then in here you're going to have the number of elements. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I have 5 elements in here. This means that this one will only be able to hold 5 elements. So if you don't want to specify the number of elements that it should hold, you can just hard code them in. So this is good for when you know exactly what you want the values to be. But if you want them to be automatically added in, then you're just going to use the other method of just specifying how many elements will be kept in here. Now, arrays operates by something that we call an index. So an index is a specific element's position within the array. And indices, whichever one you want to use, they start from 0. So the first element will be at index 0, second element will be at index 1, third element will be at index 2, the fourth element would be at index 3, and the fifth element would be at index 4. So it's basically just offset by 1. So let's just show that a little bit. So we're going to print out integers. We're going to specify the integers variable, and then how you actually assign the value is by actually checking the particular index. So you're going to have, once again, the square brackets here, and then you're going to specify which position you want. So we want the third position, you're going to specify 2. So we want the third element, so we're going to get a 3. If we run this, we get a 3. So this is 0, this is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, and index 4. That's how arrays work. That's how indexes work. So let's say, for example, you want to change the value at index 3. What you're going to do, you're going to specify that integers at index 2, and then you're going to give it a value. So you can assign any value to this. So let's say we want it to be 15, for example. So you have now changed the value at the second index, which is going to be the third value. So it's going to be 1, 2, 15, 4, and 5. As you can see, we now have a 15 here. Now in the loops video, I did mention that we had 4 loops that we're going to be talking about, but I didn't talk about the 4th one because we didn't have anything to use it for. So that's going to be talked about in today's video. But first, I'm going to tell you where I can use a for loop. So I'm just going to create a simple for loop. So for int I is equal to 0, because indices will start from 0. And then I is going to be less than the number of elements that we have. So if we have 5 elements, you say less than 5. And then we can increment it, 9 plus plus. So inside this for loop, we are now going to add in this statement. So instead of actually saying that, we're just going to say, we're going to print out the value at index I. Let's go ahead and run this. As you can see, we get a 1, 2, 15, 4, and 5 because we have modified the value of the third value to be 15. If we remove this line, you notice 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So just like that. This is just one of the ways to do it. Now you can have something called the advanced for loop, which is the fourth loop that we didn't talk about in the loops video. It is also called the for each loop, and this is how you make one of them. So it takes up the same one, but it has something like this. So what are you holding in the array? You're holding integers. So you're going to say int, and you're going to give it a variable name. So you can say int num. You can have the semicolon here, and then you're going to say integers. So all we've done here is we're saying that for each and every integer inside the integers array, we are going to print out the integer. We're going to print out the number. So what this is, it's going to run through all the values in here. So this is an integer. So this, it will check the first integer is going to be 1, num will be equal to 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. This will work the exact same way like it did with the other for loop. So as you can see, it's exactly the same. It ran through all the values that are inside the integer. So for each and every integer inside the integer array. All right, so we have this character array here in which we have got 5 letters in. So you can use the same the default for loop, which will also get the indexes, no problem, or you can use the advanced for loop, aka the for each loop, and then you just have to change because this one is a character array. It's not holding integers, instead it's holding characters. So you're gonna say for each and every character, I'm gonna say letter inside, and we need to change this inside letters. We are going to print out the letter. So as you can see, we'll get A, B, C, D, E. That's how it works. All right, so right now we're going to have a bit of a fun method that you can actually have with an integer. So right now we know that there are 5 elements in this array, which we can easily get by saying integers dot length. So what this will do, this will return an integer, which is going to indicate how many elements actually exist in here. So as we already know, it will be 5. Now we can use that length in a for loop. Let me show you how. So you can say int length is equal to integers dot length. And then what we can do is we can have that for loop again. I is less than the length increment I. Then in here, we're just going to print out I count plus I. Let's run this. As you can see, I count 0, I count 1, I count 2, I count 3, and I count 4 because we are currently iterating through the indexes right now. If you want to get the actual value, remember you just need to use the array here. So you can say integers at index I. You then get I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I don't know what level it was of education that we learned this, but do you remember in mathematics we had something that we used to call a matrix or matrices? If there are many of them, it was just like this random jumble of letters that had like its own, that had rows and columns. We can have the same in Java. It's called a multi-dimensional array. So a multi-dimensional array is basically an array that has other arrays inside it. And this is how you create something like that. We're going to have an int array. So this is how you declare a multi-dimensional array. This is a two-dimensional array which has rows and columns. You can have something like this, which means arrays inside of arrays inside of arrays, which really, I don't think you'd ever need to do that. Maybe I'm going to call this a matrix. And then you're going to need to have something like this once again. Now here's the twist, because we have because this is a multidimensional array, this will take another set of arrays. So we can have 1, 2, 3. So this is a matrix. This is what a matrix would look like. You know, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you would have to get you would have to get the row, you would have to get the row and the column. So how you would get values from this is you would say, let's print out matrix, and now you first need to specify the row that you want. So we want the first row, which is going to be 0, and we want to get the third column, which would be 2. So we're going to get the value at the first row, which is going to be this row, the third column, which should be 3. If we run this, we should get a 3 on the terminal. As you can see, we got a 3. Now let's say we wanted to get the 8. So 8 is in the third row and the second column. So we can say row number 3. Remember, these are indexes that we're using here. And second column would be a 1. We get the 8. Now, indexes can be pretty annoying. I know up to this day they're one of my worst things. If you guys have watched any of my project videos, you guys know I absolutely suck when it comes to these things. I never do understand them, but that's just how it has to work. So these ones are pretty confusing. And if you watch my very recent video where I made a tic-tac-toe application in Java, I actually used one of these. So you can check that out if you want. Now let's say, for example, you want all of these values published onto the thing. You can either use a for loop or you can just print out the argument. So let's make it simple. Let's just print out the matrix as a whole. Now you want to do this, you are not going to get these values. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see, instead of actually getting an array, a multidimensional array, you get this. This is a unique resource location, memory location for this particular. So this is its position in the memory. This is not its actual value. Now you might be thinking, how do we actually get the value? Well, to do that, you're going to have to use the arrays utility class. Utility class is a class that has all static methods so that you don't have to create an instance. So you have the arrays class, java.util, and then you're going to have toString, and then toString here, and then you're going to have to pass in any kind of array. Now let's do this array. Let's do this toString, and you will notice that we now have something resembling an array, but we still have these memory locations. And the reason for that is because this is a multi-dimensional array. If this was just one of those regular arrays, this would actually return all the values, absolutely no problem. But because it's a multi-dimensional array, you're going to need to use a deep toString, like so. And then you can run it. So as you can see, you now get your array. So if I have a regular array like this, then you can just use the toString method. And as you can see, it works absolutely fine. Now remember, you need to use this arrays.toString if you want to see these variables like they are. Otherwise, you just get a memory location, and that's not what we want. All right, so that is basically how arrays work. They're a bit complicated personally to me because of the fact that they do use indexes, which is very annoying to me. But yeah, assuming you give enough time, you can really understand how they work. They're pretty useful stuff, and they are very easy on the memory, and they're also very fast, especially if you use a byte array. Because the byte is the smallest data type, this one can save up on a whole load of memory. And like I said, you can have just about any kind of array, a character array if you want. So this one will just hold characters. And yes, you do have the Boolean array if for some reason you did have Booleans. Yeah, something like this. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a situation off the top of my head where you want to use something like this, but I'm unable to come up with one. So, alright, so that would do it for this video. Really hope you guys learned a little something about what an array is and how you can actually use an array. Anyways, hope you guys liked the video. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already. I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out.